Hey, what's up everybody? Thank you for checking this video. If you want to see more, please leave a like and subscribe. But even if you don't, enjoy and happy coding. Welcome everybody to another episode of the Nerd Continuity, where we talk about design, development, and all the other nerdy stuff that we find online. I'm your host, Alex, and with me, as usual, my co-host, Chris Perko. Hello, Chris.
Hello, hello. How are you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. Today is Canada Day here, which is like, I don't know if it's gonna be blasphemy to say, but it's probably like Independence Day, like the US Independence Day, but Canadian. I don't know anything about Canadian history. I have to study it for the citizenship.
Yeah, I don't either actually.
Yeah, who knows? Like Canada is such a weird country. But yeah, we have this Canada here. Everyone's celebrating. The beautiful thing about Canada is that our holidays are not set on a specific date. Like you have in the US, the Independence Day, that it's always on the 4th, right? So it doesn't matter if it happens on a Sunday or Saturday or a Wednesday, it's the 4th. Here in Canada, we moved the holiday to always hit a Friday or a Monday. So we gain the long weekend, which is...
Yeah, that's kind of nice because for us, the 4th this year is on Wednesday. So... you know, I'm off on Wednesday, but I have to work Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday.
Yeah,
so.
It's terrible, right?
kind of weird.
Yeah, just move it a couple of days and you get a long weekend. So yeah, I love this. Like every year, holidays end up in that specific week. All the holidays, they always in that specific moment in time of the month, but it's not a set date. So Canada Day is 1st of July. That happened on Sunday, but tomorrow, Monday, it's holiday because it's still Canada Day. We just moved it a day, which is,
nice.
I love it. Yeah, it's great. How you doing?
Pretty good. Been busy. Been working on getting set up to do some live videos. I'm wanting to do a stream hopefully later this week, maybe Thursday or Friday. Oh. I've never used like OBS or anything, so I was, trying to get like a intro screen and figure out all the transitions and everything. So it'll probably be a complete failure, but it'll be a fun learning experience. So.
Yeah, no. Did you notice YouTube released a new feature that you can do a live stream directly from the browser without any third-party software or anything else?
Yes, I did. I haven't tried it out because from first glance, it just seemed like it was like a webcam thing.
Yes.
So I wasn't sure how well it was going to work with, I want like my webcam to be a small square in the bottom corner while I'm coding, and so I'm not sure how it holds up against something like OBS that runs on your actual computer, but I mean it's a cool idea. Yeah,
definitely. No, it's super useful if you need to do just a regular live streaming and chatting in front of the camera and that's it. But yeah, OBS gives you the full flexibility of having basically like a directing studio where you can have different scenes and, as you said, transitions and welcome screens and adapt your camera left and right. I used it all the time. Are you going to use Elementary OS to do the live streaming?
Sadly, no, because I'm going to be doing Fitbit development, and they have a simulator that runs the devices on your desktop, which is great for live streaming, but it's only for Mac OS and Windows. And I've read that some people have been getting it to work on Linux, and it's in the future set to run on Linux. But it's, it's not open source software, so it's not like I can, make it faster by going and helping out.
Exactly.
So yeah, for now I'll be doing it on Windows for the live stream.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, I'm sure it's gonna be fine. Come on, like every first try of live streaming, it's always a shit show, and you're gonna have all the possible problems that you can think of. You're gonna have them all. But I've done many live streamings, and in every one of them there's always an issue. Sometimes it's just like, it's okay. It's the technology is not there yet.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, that's good to know. I won't, be alone.
No, don't stress.
So what have you been up to?
Just working a lot. I bought my suit for my wedding, like non-tech related news. I went to, thank you. Yeah. I went to a tailor. The last time I wore a suit, or I actually owned a suit, was when I was 18 for my graduation, and that's it. And yeah, I'm just like, I'm always that guy, like jeans and a t-shirt, and that's it. Like I don't even wear a shirt work, so I'm the worst, and I feel so uncomfortable. Everyone's telling me, like everyone told me that they saw me with the suit. It's like, oh, it looks perfect on you. You look beautiful. And I look like I feel really awkward and really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Well, whatever. That's the biggest news of the past 2 weeks, but that's it.
No, I haven't worn a suit since my wedding, and I feel the same way. I can't wait to just rip the tie off. Like I can't breathe, like.
Yeah, probably I'm gonna go for a bow tie with some like
nice.
I don't know, coatings printed on it. I don't know. I want to do something a little bit quirky, but not too much, because otherwise my wife's gonna hate me. So that's a great way to start a marriage.
Yeah.
We'll see. But yeah, okay, so this episode is gonna be a continuation from the episode of a couple of weeks ago, all about Laravel, and we're gonna start like taking a look at the nitty gritty and all the the little details of the folder structure, because the first time that every developer starts using a framework or a CMS or something, and you want to code something for yourself, you open the source code, and you see all these folders, all these files, and every single one of these frameworks has its own structure, has its own like naming conventions for specific folders. So it can be really, really confusing. So we're gonna try to analyze the most important folders and give you a sort of like detailed but not too detailed overview of what you should do, which folders you should start getting used to and getting acquainted with, and how you should organize your code. So hopefully it's gonna be interesting. It's not gonna be like super boring and two guys talking about code that you cannot see. So it's gonna be like really challenging, but it's okay. We're nerds, so we love this shit. But before starting, there are a bunch of news, and actually would like for you to start, Chris, talking about Taylor Otwell, the creator of Laravel, and because it's all related to LaraCon, the conference that you're attending this year. So tell us a little bit about what this guy did on Twitter.
So Taylor is kind of, he's the creator of Laravel, and he is known for teasing people with things on Twitter and not revealing much, but just saying things are coming. And he always likes to give little hints, and people just go nuts with their conspiracies and what is Taylor up to. And so he tweeted a couple nights ago, and he said, most excited for this Laracon US than any other Laracon since Forge launch, which I believe was in 2014. So he's super excited about it. And then he said this: beach has been calm, but a big wave is about to crash in. So I'm thinking this has to do with what he's calling this package, or this, this now another pay service kind of thing like Forge. But yeah, the whole beach and wave thing is kind of a weird thing to throw in there.
Yeah, exactly.
And then in a reply, he then said something like, "Composer require Laravel Dank. Get ready." So so this is going to be awesome, apparently, but no clue what it is.
Oh, yeah, not at all. And so Wave probably is going to, I don't know, Laravel Wave sounds a little bit too obvious, but it could be like a service called Laravel Wave. But like thinking about that, what's missing from the Laravel ecosystem? Because Taylor released for like the past years, pretty much once a year, release a new service that you can use. So we have Laravel Forge, we have Laravel Spark that you can create and scaffold basically a fully functional administration area with integrated Stripe and credit card management, all this kind of stuff. Then we have Laravel Horizon that I think was the most recent one.
Yeah, that was last year, and to be honest, I've forgotten what it is. I've never used it.
Yeah, and I never used it either. I know that it's a dashboard code-driven configuration for Laravel powered by Redis, but I never used it, so I don't know any more other than what it's written in the homepage, and that's it.
Yeah.
But yeah, pretty much every year adds a service to help Laravel developers, and all these services are built in Laravel, built with Laravel, it's like Laravelception. It's pretty fantastic. Do you think it does that just to showcase how cool Laravel is and all the things that you can build with it?
Probably. I think also, he knows his own framework so well that he can probably build a better app in it quicker than trying to do it in something else.
Well, that would be silly,
But
right? Yeah, I built
yeah.
Laravel, but all my stuff is done in CodeIgniter because
Right. Yeah.
because I'm a crazy person. And what is this
Yeah.
Laravel Dank for you? What could it be?
That I mean, since he said composer require, I think it's got to be some kind of composer package, and I'm hoping it's a free package,
Hmm.
like Spark you had to pay for.
Yeah.
Uh, but I don't know. I'm not really sure what's missing from Laravel. I don't know if it's some kind of like maybe some kind of pre-built spa because Laravel right now comes more of as like an MVC
Hmm.
with Vue built in. You can swap Vue out for React, but if you want to build a spa, you have to build this whole spa part yourself.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's going to be something like that or I don't know.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, that's true. And just for the audience that don't know, like SPA, it means for like a single page application, which
Mhm.
it's kind of like still a little bit convoluted to convert Laravel with a single page application if you want to use a front end, a fully just like a JavaScript front end. It's kind of like hard to handling the router of your
Mhm.
JavaScript framework. So if you're using Vue, using Vue router and wire it properly with the Laravel router, it's kind of like a lot of extra steps. But yeah,
Mhm.
it's interesting. Also, I guess like last year with 5.6 was released also Laravel Dusk, which is the front end browser test that you can use to test your front end, basically unit tests for your browser. And
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to use Dusk because so I tried to use it at work when
mhm.
I started there a year ago. At the time we had we had very little like unit testing in
Yeah.
place and no front end tests. So I was like, I'm gonna use Dusk. But I ran into a lot of problems because I have to work behind like a VPN and firewall and all this
Uh,
crazy stuff. And Dusk was just it was throwing so many errors all the time. I just gave up on it.
yes.
If I was working, just on my local device, it would be fine. I did play around some testing off of the VPN and it worked fine.
Hmm.
But to get it to work, where we were actually hitting our database and everything was just a nightmare.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's not like we implemented the work just because our entire front end it's JavaScript related. So
Mhm.
we wanted something integrated with Laravel and not using like Jets or Mocha, some external service or third party server to test the front end. But the
Mhm.
funny thing is about Dusk is that you need an env.dusk file to specify a fake database. Otherwise, before testing, it's gonna I don't know if I did some mistake, but it wipes out your database. So luckily I was
Oh,
testing locally, but it wiped out my database when I ran Dusk for the first time and I freaked out for a couple of seconds. But it was
yeah.
just my local, luckily. It's okay. And there are other weird things about Dusk, like you have to have a proper configuration when you deploy it because Dusk opens up some specific ports that if you deploy Dask on production, it opens like a massive vulnerability and backport on your website, which it's terrible. So it's kind of like dangerous to use if you don't know what to
Yeah.
do, like I did. I had no idea what I was doing. But yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
Laravel Dank. We'll see. We'll see. When is Laracon again? When is gonna happen?
Let's see here. It's I believe the 25th and 26th of July.
Nice. Awesome. Is this
So
gonna
yeah,
be
a few
over?
more weeks.
Oh, sweet. Are you gonna
Yeah.
please do a live streaming from your phone? Please do it. Do it. Do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think on the second day, as soon as I get out of there, I'll probably do a live stream and I'm sure by the time I'm on there, every blogger in that place is already gonna have their stuff out there for whatever this is that Taylor's talking about. But yeah, I'll definitely do a live stream and be able to answer some questions from anybody who has questions about the event or what I heard and everything. So
I'm gonna be there, wait for you, and ask you all the questions that I have. I'm gonna hijack your live stream, like, hey, hey, what about this? What about that? You're gonna ban me. You're gonna block my user from. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And then hopefully next year I'll see you there.
Oh yeah, that would be lovely. I would love to come. is really expensive, especially from Canada, because the US dollar is like, Canadian dollar is just like a bag of dirt compared to to US dollars. Just it's a joke, like monopoly money. So yeah, but yeah, next year I would love to come. Okay, other news, a bunch of like security issues throughout the week, which was like kind of like, probably, I don't know if it's related to Microsoft acquiring GitHub, but it could be some.
It was
like,
bad timing.
It was really bad timing. But yeah, the Gentoo Linux distribution that has its own source code hosted on GitHub on a repository was hacked in a way that a group of people, they don't know, they didn't disclose this information, but they were able to gain access to their GitHub repository, and they changed the source code with some malware, that some like bash script that if you download it, install it, and update your Gentoo distribution via GitHub, basically that bash script was going to delete all your files or destroy your distribution. It's amazing. That's like terrible thing. The maintainers and the developers of Gentoo, they immediately found out after a few hours that this was happening, because luckily every single commit that they have, it's signed with a personal signature. So every developer has a personal signature. They were able to identify these malicious files where they didn't have a signature, but a bunch of people, they have their own Gentoo distribution hooked dynamically, automatically to the GitHub repository, and it's like every time there's a new release, it gets downloaded and your operating system is always updated, which for this specific reason here, it was like not the best solution. But yeah, it's interesting that this is happening after like a couple of weeks of the Microsoft acquisition.
Yeah, it probably just really bad timing, but they did say that they're working with now Microsoft to get an actual timeline and see what actually happened. And I don't know if we'll ever know, but it is interesting to see how Microsoft will handle it versus how GitHub may have handled it before the acquisition.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Hope they're gonna release more information. Luckily, the GitHub repository is just a mirror of the actual full source code, so the original code wasn't corrupted forever, which would be super shitty. But I think it's kind of the point of the version control. Even if your code gets corrupted, you can always get it back in some way. But it's,
Git is amazing.
Yeah, exactly. It's like life savior. But I guess that's one of the dangers of having like a big organization with so many developers working on the same repository. You need to have mirror repositories, and you should have like probably a detached repository where with a limited access, just the admins that can access that specific repository, and that should be your production repository. When you have thousands of contributors and thousands of collaborators, everyone pushing code on that repo. So something like that ever happened to you? I saw your tweet about major fuck ups. You were asking questions.
Yeah, because I was thinking, I know I'm not alone. I know pretty much every developer has done something to, something horrible. I mean, it just happens, and especially when you're new in your career, you don't think about making backups or using version control a lot of times. So yeah, I was like 3 months into my job. They gave me access to all the databases, and I thought I was on development, and I did a delete from table, and as it was deleting, I was like, oh, I forgot my where clause. Oh, I'll just, Control C, kill it. Like, all right, let's see what I messed up. And then I realized I'm on production. And so that database was being used by all our analysts, by all of our data acquisition people, by the system that was actually selling reports to people. It was everything. So we had, I owned up to it, but it took our senior engineers quite a while to get the latest backup and roll everything back. And I mean, we had to take the site down, and it was not a good afternoon.
And what happened to you after that? Tell us, like, did they, I don't know, that like publicly humiliated in like a common room, like a conference room?
I think just everybody knowing that it was me was punishment enough. So, it was kind of just like, all right, you learned your lesson, right? I'm like, yeah, all right.
Yeah, that's one thing though that you can learn from this experience and all the bad experience. It's like you, as far as you're not like a bad person or you're like you don't try to do this with a malicious type of like
hmm
reasons behind that. If it's just an accident, you're not gonna get fired. If you don't
Yeah.
really do something really terrible that is humanly terrible, you're not gonna get fired because these accidents happen. And one of the things is that probably is like the lead developer of who was in charge of that or was in charge of
hmm
training you felt super bad because you don't give production access to a junior
No.
developer without having a proper training. So that's not it's not
Right.
totally your fault.
Right. And that's the whole reason why they had backups and they had a whole plan in place in case, what if a hacker did get in and just decide to take down
Mm.
our database? There's always that what if. So since they had that in place, they were able to get everything back up and running. It took a little while, but it was not like, well, now we're out of business. We had to shut down. Everybody's losing their jobs because
Because
we
Chris
have no data.
because Chris did it.
Exactly.
Chris Perka put us out of business. Thank you, Chris. It's a great entry in your resume. Like I was able to
Mhm.
shut down a company in one afternoon. Hire me
Yeah,
now.
with one line of code.
Hire me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Speaking about accidentally deleting stuff, there's a well-known bug in the WordPress core. It's a massive vulnerability that was discovered 7 months ago, and it hasn't been patched yet. Why I don't know, but it's super dangerous. Basically, a user found out that one of the many functions, one of the many methods that are inside the WP includes directory, and specifically the method that takes care of deleting an attachment when a user in the administration area deletes a media element, that it's an image, a video, audio, whatever. There's a PHP function used that is called unlink, and the PHP function unlink literally like deletes that file. The variable that it's passed to that function is not sanitized. And that means that you can literally write SQL injections and you can write HTML or JavaScript in there and it's gonna be just executed because it's not sanitized as just simple text. If there's a hacker that gain access as like a user with whatever account in your administration area, even if it's just an author or a regular user that doesn't have administration capabilities but can delete a media element, can simply like delete an image, could potentially inject SQL and could potentially delete your entire database or your entire WordPress installation with an SQL injection.
Right, and not just deleting, but I mean, if you can do SQL injection, you can then pull information from the database. And if you have a site with a bunch of users' personal information, that could be a really bad thing for somebody to get a hold of.
Exactly. Yes, that's one of the many things that you can do with SQL injections, which is fantastic. But yeah, also like the latest version of WordPress 4.9.6 is still open to that vulnerability. The user here, that the developer that found out, wrote a blog post highlighting how to fix and prevent that attacks, but because he doesn't know the entire core of WordPress, is not aware if that specific issue, so not being sanitized a specific variable during important operation, that vulnerability could be extended to also other sections of WordPress, which is kind of shitty. I don't know, it makes me think of the technical depth that WordPress has, being a CMS that it was like created 10 plus years ago and is still backward compatible down to 7 years ago. So it's mostly procedural. Something like that, it's like it happens in more and more often. And I'm not sure. Is it?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I mean, I agree it's going to happen. And I felt like the last couple of years, WordPress has been really quick at fixing any kind of vulnerability that's come up. So to find out that this was discovered 7 months ago is kind of astonishing that WordPress hasn't patched it. I mean, I think especially with, WordPress has always had kind of this this title to them as being like a vulnerable CMS, like, oh, you have WordPress, like it's just full of bugs, it's full of vulnerabilities.
Yes.
So for something like this to come out is not great.
Exactly.
I mean, it still powers like what 30% of the web now. So
yeah, 30% of the blogs out there are powered by WordPress.
yeah.
Which, yeah.
So to know that if you go to a website, there's a chance that a pretty good chance it's running WordPress, and that you can inject SQL is not good.
It's still like kind of, yeah, you need to have a user account inside. You can do these only from the administration area, so you cannot do it as a regular user, as a regular someone that is browsing. But still, it's like that could happen. Like that could really, like, even by accident, that could really happen. Even if you just like accidentally copy paste something in an input field while you're deleting things, that text will be passed unsanitized to your unlinked method, and you don't know what the hell could happen. So it's kind of like a pretty big deal. Yeah, we'll see what's gonna happen. Yeah, I think we're done with the news. We can start with our main topics, talking all about Laravel and try to understand these kind of like weird folder structure. How is just random question? How is the folder structure compared to the .NET that you're an expert? You always use that.
It's similar. It's quite different in a lot of ways. Trying to remember a lot of the folder structures and stuff I've worked in the past. Because a lot of times, like in .NET, you can start with like a bare bones application. It's a lot smaller than what you have in Laravel, and then you kind of add your own stuff to it. So Laravel out of the box, especially for a new developer, you run your new command, it creates a new application for you, and you open it up in your editor, and you're like, oh my God, where do I start? Like there's so many folders everywhere.
Yes.
So I think it's, for a new developer, it's probably very scary and it probably turns a lot of people off just seeing that. But there's really only a few of these root folders that you really need to focus on. A lot of it is just dealing with running Laravel as a whole and the commands and everything that runs in the console. And so if you really just kind of look at the things that you need to build an app, it's a lot less than you're really looking at.
Yes, absolutely. And the first thing that a developer does, and I'm guilty of that, I did that too, especially if you're not an experienced developer, the first time you access Laravel, the first thing that you try to identify, if you have a little bit of a PHP experience, is trying to find that damn index.php. Because you think with your experience in PHP that everything starts from the index.php, right? Everything starts from there. So if I want to edit something, I just have to find the index.php, and then I start building PHP files in that same directory. But no, you shouldn't do that. So the folders that you should absolutely ignore as soon as you start Laravel are mostly like, I'd say like 3 folders you can completely ignore that you will use later. The first folder that you can totally ignore is the public folder. That public folder is where Laravel and your Webpack compiler and everything, basically they compile your assets and they put it there, and it's all automated. So you literally don't have to create any file in that. You don't have to edit the index.php. You don't have to manually write CSS files inside the public CSS folder. Public folder is just for Laravel to spit out the code for you, and that's it. The other folder that you have to absolutely ignore is the vendor folder. Don't open that. Don't try to understand what's inside that folder. That's just a collection of all the Composer packages, because Laravel is heavily built on top of Composer packages. It's basically the entire framework. It's a Composer package. So I don't know how many megabytes of files is there, and
it's massive.
It's gigantic. And the other thing that you can, as a starter, completely ignore, it's also the tests folder. If you're not acquainted with Laravel, you don't know what TDD is, like test-driven development, you can totally ignore the test folder. It's for now, it's fine. Before, just like get used to Laravel. And so we already excluded these 3 folders, and now we can start focus on the app folder, which, Chris, what the hell is the app folder? What's happening there?
So the app is probably where you're going to spend 90% of your time writing your app. It is what it is, what it sounds like. It's the application. This is where all your models and your controllers and all your business logic and any classes you need to add in there for, for whatever reason. I mean, it all goes in the app folder. This is where all that code is for your application is.
Yes, exactly. And the app folder comes with a bunch of predefined subdirectories. So we have like the console, exceptions, HTTP, and providers. The majority of the time you will spend inside the HTTP and then controllers, especially if you don't have to deal with any weird middleware. If you're doing something really basic and using the basic web routes, or maybe the auth routes that comes with built-in, you have those middlewares. But we're going to talk about middlewares probably in the next episode if you want to dive deeper, because they could be really confusing. But yeah, your controllers are inside the app HTTP controllers, and you can create everything there. And as we said in the last video, in the previous episode of the podcast, you can use Artisan, PHP Artisan, to generate your controllers. You don't have to go inside the controllers folder, right click, create new file, and then open PHP tags, write the namespace, and blah, blah, blah. You can open the terminal and write PHP Artisan make column controller, and then the name of your controller without the PHP extension, because I did that sometimes. I created the controller.php and it was creating controller.php.php. Stuck it.
Yeah, and there's some cool flags that you can add to it where you can tell it like, oh, this is a resource controller, so it needs to have all the CRUD endpoints. And that controller will be flushed out with functions for like your update and delete and your get and your put, like all that stuff is built for you. So you can just go in there and be like, okay, now I can just write the code for what I want to happen when I want to delete and hit this controller with the delete verb. And so just doing all that, it gets rid of like, oh man, like I said, my namespace, I gotta write class, blah, blah, blah controller, and I mean, just all that for you. So using Artisan just makes developing so much faster.
Yes, it's really amazing. And one thing that I learned down the line, I guess after 3-4 months that I was using Laravel, I don't know if it's written in the documentation and I missed it, but the controllers folder, you can actually organize your controllers in whatever folder you want, because we are using namespaces and composer autoload. So your controllers don't have to be all inside the base controllers directory. Like it's happening in the default installation, you have the auth controllers like login, register, reset, and blah, 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 inside the auth subfolder inside controllers. So you can organize your things. For example, if you have booking website, you're building a booking website, and all the checkout process, you have multiple controller. For example, you have the cart, and then you have a license, or you have the invoice selection or the invoice creation. All like these 3 things are all related to the checkout process. You could have a checkout folder inside the controllers and put those 3 controllers there, and not have like a massive list of controllers inside the controllers folder, which gets kind of like a little bit out of hand and hard to manage.
Yeah, and I think that this goes along with the whole like the command line tool is called Artisan. Like this is a framework for web artisans. So clean code is kind of the keyword for Laravel, and to be able to put your controllers in these subfolders like that to keep your code base really clean, just comes out of the box and it works, and it really does make it so much simpler when you are going back in to fix a bug or adding a new functionality to something that already exists. It's just It's just super nice.
It's really it really is super nice. One last thing about the controllers: whenever you generate a controller with Artisan, or you access a controller like a built-in controller when you install Laravel the first time, you already have all these views that are basically the required ones from a vendor composer autoload. You have all these use packages that are coming from the vendor folder from the composer packages, so from the Illuminate composer packages or the requests or the foundation, all this kind of stuff that you definitely shouldn't touch, because I stumble upon a bunch of developers that for the first time they were like, oh, I have this use Illuminate foundation, but I don't see the folder Illuminate foundation in my Laravel directory. So probably that's a mistake. And they were like removing those things because they didn't understand what they were for. And of course, their Laravel application was just like crumbling and not using it. Those are all vendor packages coming from Composer. You should absolutely not touch those.
Yes. Yeah, don't touch anything if it's got Illuminate and it's already built into something that Artisan made. Just don't touch it.
Exactly. Another amazing thing that I don't know if it's possible in other frameworks. I know personally, like in CodeIgniter, if you're editing a specific folder structure in, for example, the structure of the controllers, you cannot create new folders and have new functionalities based on your folders. But Laravel, it's pretty flexible. So in the app or the app HTTP folders, you can create other folders, like, for example, the traits or some listeners and events. If you have to create some listener events, you can create those folders that are not there by default. And by using the usual namespace, use, and wire it up with the specific providers that are inside the specific folder, everything works nicely, and it doesn't matter where you put your file. You can have your own file structure inside the app folder, which is, it's pretty amazing. Like, you're not tied to respect strictly the folder structure of Laravel, which is super handy, I guess.
Yeah, we have a very complicated Laravel app that I use at my full-time job, and our app folder is nothing like you would see in just a demo on the documentation. It's very custom. We have different sections for different business logic and repositories, and it's pretty complicated, but it all works great just because of namespaces and the using, and it's just so easy to build what you want and not have to be like, well, the framework doesn't allow it.
Exactly.
Well, why not? Like, why do I put this somewhere else?
It's just PHP.
Just work.
It's just PHP. You should be able to write whatever the hell you want, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Question that I don't know the answer. Question for you. Can you organize models in subfolders, or all the models have to be in the app folder?
They can be in subfolders because we do that. We have like app models, and then we pull from different data sources. So it might be like app models reporting, or app models, call center or whatever. So yeah, you can put them in subfolders inside subfolders and go as far as you want, really.
Oh, that's great. That's amazing. That's fantastic. Let's not go too deep, but just to recap, the app folder is one of the most important folder of Laravel, and you should spend a lot of time in this folder and try to understand why all the files are there, what the console is for, all the providers, what they do. And honestly, the providers, you won't really touch the providers unless you have to extend some specific functionality of Laravel by following the installation of a specific third-party composer package that you install. By yourself, it's kind of like, I actually, like, also personally, I don't by myself edit the service providers just like that. I always edit the service providers when I have to install something new or when I have to extend the specific functionalities by following the documentation. So yeah, you don't have to just like, oh, I don't know what to do with service providers. Don't worry, it's just all written in the documentation. It's totally fine. Moving on, after we got our models and our controllers, so we have sort of like the connection of the backend to a specific database. How do we manage the database in Laravel?
We use the database directory.
Wow, it's so obvious.
Yes, it's in inside the database. You have three directories. You have factories, you have migrations, and you have seeds. Um, Migration is probably where you're going to spend most of your time here.
Hmm.
And a migration can be like, you're starting a new app and you want to create a table for, um, I don't know, you're building a library app, so it needs to keep track of books. I want to create a book table. So you'll create a migration that will create the table, and you'll set up what columns you'll need, the title, the author, the ID number,
Hmm.
all that stuff. And that goes in your migrations folder. And then when you want to migrate it to, let's say, your production database, that's already set up for you, and it just runs through and migrates it. It creates a table, creates all those columns. And if there's ever a problem, you can actually go backwards, and it has inside each migration, there's an up function and a
Hmm.
down function. So the up function does the migration, it creates the table. The down function for this example would be to drop that table.
Hmm.
So if there was a problem you need to roll back, it'll automatically drop the table, and you don't have to remember, oh, what have I done since the last time I pushed to production? Oh, it was this table. I need to go and delete it. And oh, what dependencies does it have on other tables? And so your migrations are going to be where all of that stuff is taking place.
Exactly. And also in this case, please, please, for the love of God, don't create migrations manually, but use Artisan. Yes. Because migrations are ordered by date and ordered by a number, like an increasing number. And all the migrations, they need to be managed by Artisan, because otherwise when you migrate to your server, so basically in the migration you write the entire database or that specific table structure that you want to create, and then you run the migration on your terminal via Artisan to install all those things, or like to set up your database with all the things that you wrote. If you don't use Artisan to generate those files, your migration will not work. Most likely your migration rollback, if you want to roll back, as you said, and remove some stuff or fix some things, so you need to roll back and fix and run the migration again, won't work at all. It's going to be like such a pain to manage migrations if you don't respect the structure. And another thing, please use always a one-to-one relationship. That is not the proper way of saying, but use for one migration, do one thing. Don't create a migration and create 27 tables or edit hundreds different things with one single migration. Always, even if it looks kind of like stupid and you're gonna have like your migrations folder that has a gigantic amount of files, that's totally fine. That folder will not affect your application. Like the amount of files will not negatively affect the speed or the performance of your application. It's just for you to keep your sanity. One file does one thing. It's way easier to manage, and it's scalable, and it's easier to read also. Be super eloquent in the name of your migration. Don't name migrations with random names that don't represent what's inside the migration. Do you have any nightmare episodes with migrations or something related to it?
No, I haven't. I've been really happy with it. The only problem I have is right now at work, we don't have any databases running locally on our machines. But that is mainly because we're doing a lot of work with a lot of data warehousing, a lot of big data, and it's just too hard to like have a small version of that database on your machine. So luckily there's only me and one other developer. So if one of us is actually working with creating new tables or modifying things, we'll tell the other person like, hey, I'm building some migrations, so if just don't touch it for right now. Because if we're both creating migrations and one of us hits the rollback, it's gonna be like, well, your migration doesn't exist here. It's because it's on his branch, and so that is a little issue, but I think it's just because of the way we're doing things, and it's not typical what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, another thing is of migrations that I stumbled upon a junior developer doing that, and I almost lost it for like completely. Basically, he was creating a migration, like a stupid examples that is not related to what he did, but it's similar. You create the user table, and in the user table you have the email that is a string, and then you run the migration. So your database now has the users table with your ID, name, email, password, and all the other things. Then after running other migrations to create the order table or the whatever, just all the other things of his application, he realized they wanted the email to be unique. So instead of creating another migration to edit the user table and convert the email column to a unique value, he was going back to the original migration that he created as first to create the user, changing the migration, wiping out the entire server, and rerunning all the migrations.
Wow.
No!
I mean, that's definitely fine if you haven't released yet, if you haven't pushed to a server. But if you've already got code out there, then just make a new migration.
Yeah, and what he was doing, because he had data inside that, even if it was just test data, he was doing like an SQL export of the data and then an SQL import after. So he wasn't even using the seeds or
right.
It was like, this is insanity, because he thought that creating a new migration to edit a previous migration was a mistake. Like the migrations needed to be clean. But it's,
I see.
Yeah, it's okay. Like it happens throughout the lifespan of an application. It happens that you want to change or update your database structure on some tables that you already have there.
Yeah. It really doesn't cost anything to write another migration. It's one more PHP file and just a list of migrations. So.
Yes. Yeah, that was like when I saw it, I was like, what are you doing? Why? Why every time you delete something? It's like, oh, it's easier, so I don't have migration errors. Yeah, that's not the point. So in the same database folder, we ordered in migrations that it's the most important things. We have the factories, and the factories basically, it's a directory that contains all the model factory to define some predefined data that you want to fake and generate. When you use Faker in the terminal, if you want to generate fake data, you can use also your factories that you define there. And that's really useful because sometimes, especially at the beginning of an application, you don't really have data to deal with, and you don't really have data to test your application, and you don't want to inject that data inside the database and then test it and then wipe out your database. So you can use factories to just write whatever you want. It's just fill up your database with fake data. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and it has a lot of really cool little properties. Like if you have users, you can tell it, generate 1,000 users, and each one has a unique full name, and it just comes up with all these full names and fake email addresses, and it's just a really cool way to build a lot of test data. And it's also great for unit tests. I use it so much for unit tests where I'm like, I want to have 2 users and I want to each one generate a comment, and I want to see if this person can edit that comment. Like I don't have to write the SQL to insert all this stuff. I just tell it to do it and it does it for me.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's fantastic for unit testing. At work, we use it for we used it at the beginning when we were building our like first version of the application. We use it to fill up the database with all the licenses, because we had like 50 different licenses, but we didn't have the actual data of the licenses, but we needed those 50 licenses in order to test the licensing system. So instead of using a seeder, we created the Faker, like the license factory, and we injected 50 different unique name licenses with random number that was the price of the license, and that's it. In just like 3 lines of code, we had 50 fake licenses ready for us in the database to test, and it was like perfect, like no problem at all. So yeah, beautiful. And for unit test, it's amazing. Yeah,
and just like migrations, you can generate just the boilerplate factory with an artisan command.
Oh yes.
So if there's anything you need to do, anything where you're like, oh, I need to like copy and paste this from another class, there's probably an artisan command to generate it for you.
Exactly. It's like the same way of saying, oh, there's probably a WordPress plugin that does that. It's the same. Yeah. There's probably an artisan command that does that. And in conclusion, the seeds. Basically, the seeds, it's what it is. It's a seed. It's like a bunch of different files that you can use to populate your database. Especially, it's really useful when you have a massive amount of data and you don't want to really convert your data into an SQL insert, or you don't want to hire an intern to write that data and manually input that data in your database. You can write a seeder, and we use the seeders with a CSV because we have our licensing system. Actually, we have our tagging system of the songs that our boss came up with that system in a spreadsheet, and has all those like CSV export of these like hundreds of thousands of tags assigned to our library of songs. And instead of converting that into an SQL insert, we just exported the CSV, and then we use the seeder to pull up the CSV, run it, manipulate it, and then seed our database with all those tags.
It's awesome.
Marvelous. Like, yeah, literally took 1 hour to build the seeder, and now every time we have to update our 140,000 tags, is just like, okay, run the seeder, done, perfect. We got a new
That's
CSV.
awesome.
Yeah, no, it's really useful. Okay, I think like the database folder is pretty much it. Like there, and I never created custom folders in the database folder. I don't know, is it necessary? Is it like actually?
I don't know what else you would put there.
Yeah,
honestly.
exactly.
I've never done anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. So there you go. Moving on to the resources folder, because now we have a database. We can create our migration, put our fake data or real data, however you want. We have our controllers and models in the app. Where are the views in this Laravel application?
Yeah, so that is one thing that threw me off at first, because I was expecting just a view folder on the root, and that's not there. It's inside resources. So inside resources, you have your views, and you also have your assets, which are like your JavaScript and your CSS. So yeah, the views are in Blade format, which is like a Laravel specific. I think he was taking a jab at .NETs, because they have Razor views. So they have Razor. This is Blade.
That's amazing. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So yeah, and Razor really is like, it's like a shorthand way of writing PHP inside your HTML.
You mean Blade? You said Razor.
Yes, Blade.
Sorry. You secretly love .NET, right? Like you're trying to convince everyone with this podcast to switch to .NET. Yes.
That's right. I'm gonna brainwash everybody.
Yes.
But yeah, so instead of writing like PHP tags and echo this, you can just use like a double mustache. And then they have things like these little @ symbols. You can use things for like if, and then you can do some PHP, then you're gonna spit out this stuff, or a while loop or for each. So Blade is like a shorthand way of having to like break into PHP and write stuff and echo stuff out, and it's just like a really nice way of doing PHP inside your HTML.
Yeah, it's really great. And one thing that Blade and this whole Laravel structure taught me is that if you start running raw PHP in your views, it means that something wrong in your controllers. It means you're doing something definitely wrong. So your views should be really clean. Like the majority of your views should have actual HTML in it, and you should just print the variables that you pass via the controller to your views with a double mustache or double curly brackets, if you want to call it like that. But yeah, so your views are really clean, and you just deal with really eloquent data that you don't have that computation or all those functions and methods, or you don't manipulate variables inside your views, and you shouldn't do that. So even if the blades are PHP files, you shouldn't do anything PHP related in it. You should just use the Blade template tags, and that print your data. It's just to print the data that you already manipulated or changed or whatever. There are a lot of, actually, like at the beginning when Laravel came out, like Blade was really simple, had only if statements and loops, and pretty much that's it. but now has all these extra tags that are like every time, every new version, they implement a new tag. And sometimes there are these guys on Twitter that they release small snippets of these amazing tags. It makes the life easier. Like, for example, in the default installation of Laravel, if you access the welcome.blade.php, there's @auth tag that is basically like saying if the user is logged, print this, or else print this other thing. Instead, you just have @auth, and that's it. It does everything here. Like, it recognizes if the user is logged in, or else you can use another thing.
And you can write your own.
Oh, yeah,
you can write your own Blade directives right into your app. So if there's something that, maybe it needs to check to see, like, is the user an administrator user, you can make your own isAdmin directive, and then you can use it in your Blade files. It's super easy to build your own and to use.
Yeah, and if you build a really cool Blade tag template integration, you should definitely submit it as like a PR, like a pull request to the Laravel Blade template, because that's the beauty of open source. If you create something cool, just share it so everyone can use it, and you will find your custom integration in the next version of Laravel, most likely, which is fantastic, right? In the same resources folder, we have also the almighty assets folder, where it contains, and it should contain, the actual assets. So as I said in the beginning, in the public folder, the CSS and JavaScript, or if you have images or stuff like that, you shouldn't touch those. If you want your styles and your JavaScript files, they should go into the resource assets folder. By default, Laravel, when you install it for the first time, comes with a view component sort of structure in the JavaScript folder, and it comes by default with a Sass folder, so SCSS. It's natively recognized also, like Webpack compiles everything for you. Have you ever used Laravel with other frameworks, or with something like, for example, like React, or something really old like Ember or Backbone.js when they were a thing?
So I do, our work Laravel project is running on AngularJS version 1.4, I believe.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, so we're running with Angular, and it works great. Can't complain at all. And if you are a React fan, like everybody is apparently, you can when you create a new Laravel project, there's a command in Artisan that'll actually swap out the Vue components with React ones instead. So so if you are like, oh, I'm not going to do Laravel just because it comes with Vue right out of the box, like, you can swap it out with React with one line. It's awesome.
Yes, exactly. It's amazing. You can also scaffold the application like with nothing in it, right? With like no framework at all. So it's just like simple PHP, and you have like regular JavaScript and CSS that you can write there.
Yeah, so if you just want to write a little bit of vanilla JavaScript here and there, if you don't really need a lot of JavaScript, then that's definitely an easy option.
Yes, exactly. And then the last folder is inside the resources folder that personally I've never used, because I don't know, like, I'm an English speaking country, and I never did a multilingual application with Laravel. But you have your language folder, where it contains all your translations based on a folder. So you have your the shorthand, or like the shortcode of the language that you want to use as the name of the subfolder, and inside there you have all the PHP files to manage those translations. Personally, I know I never used that, so I shouldn't speak about it, but personally it's kind of weird that it's not using the regular POT, like the language folders, like the pot files. They're like more universally used. Also, WordPress uses like the pot files to handle translations. It's kind of weird that it uses PHP files to do that and returns an array with your translation.
Yeah, I honestly have never done anything with multi-language support. I know that's very American of me.
All right.
But pretty much every place I've worked at has been either for internal tools in the country, or for like US based. Like when I was at teachersteachers.com, it was a job seeking site for American teaching jobs. So it was only within the 50 states. So so I've actually never dealt with any kind of language files. I don't even know what a pot file is.
Oh yeah, no, it's all right. It's just like, it's a Is that a text file? I don't know technically. Like being like from Italy, we always had to do the English version of our website. Like especially if it was a public website, you needed to have the English version. Otherwise, you don't exist in Europe if you don't write an English translation of your website. And usually you use these language files that are like .pot extension. That are just, I don't know if they return a sort of like JSON type of structure where you have the location of the word, the path of that file, the line where that specific word needs to be translated, and then you have the original word and then the translation word. Basically, these files are this massive list of path URL, word translated, path URL, word translated, path URL, word translated. And you can have, the good thing about this file, you can name that file en.pot. That means that file is for the English version. That you can name it fr.pot, French version. it.pot is the Italian version. So you don't have to like manually change your application. Your application has built-in localization feature in it, like automatically grabs the file that matches the localization thing. And if it doesn't, if you don't have that type of file, it rolls back to the default one that usually it's English. So really useful, really easy to use. So I'm not sure why. Probably it's because of the PHP nature of this framework. It's hard to manage, but as I said, WordPress uses pot files. So WordPress is doing something better. I don't know. Probably that's what Laravel Dank is.
Maybe.
Oh my God. That would be like the least exciting thing ever. Like, hey, you can do better translations. Ooh. Ooh. Okay, in conclusion, the last folder we're going to talk about before the end of this episode is the routes folder, which personally was the easiest section to understand for me about Laravel. Not only because the documentation is fantastic, but because it's really linear. Like you don't need to do anything crazy. It's just one code, like which URL you're visiting, which permalink you're visiting, and which controller should answer to that permalink. Of course, you can do many more things, but when you have an application with the regular resources or regular permalink structure, you can do everything in just one line per resource, which is, it's beautiful. It's just fantastic. Routes, it's really easy.
Yeah, it is very well documented, and really the two files you really need to know is the API and the web, which just makes perfect sense. You have the web, which is just your view routes. You know, if I go to /about, it should show the about blade, and you'll see the about page. And then you have the API, which is what it sounds like. It's going to be your RESTful API endpoints. So when you're going to create a new user, it's going to a user controller and doing all the controller stuff you have in your app folder, but the actual route is just right there in your api.php file. You can pass parameters in. It's super easy, and yeah, I mean, just the documentation, it's short and concise, and you can just read right through it and understand what exactly it's doing.
Yeah, exactly. It's fantastic. All these things that we're saying and we're trying to explain, it's basically are the stuff that are not as clear in the documentation as we wish they were, because like the documentation can kind of like assume I think personally it's one of the best documentations out there for any type of software or framework CMS. It's really easy to understand, but I feel personally kind of assumes that you already, as a user, when you access that documentation, you already know pretty much what is Laravel, how you should use it in order to build something. It doesn't spend much time, because I kind of understand it why it's kind of useless. It doesn't spend much time in telling you this is where you should put your stuff, and the app folder. Yes, you can create as many folders as you want. You can change the structure of the app folder. It doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't tell you all these things that you kind of learn as you go on. But yeah, like other than that, the documentation is fantastic. And the routes folder, it's strictly or directly connected to the middleware folder that we skipped at the beginning from the app HTML middleware, because the middleware how can we say this? It's like basically a gateway to tell your application which routes should use based on what's happening in the application. So if the user just browses the front end, the middleware returns the web.php route. But if maybe you want to have a protected section, for example, like an administration area or a dashboard that only the authenticated users can access, instead of wrapping your web routes around the auth middleware, you can define a unique middleware that automatically points only when the user is logged, or protects all the routes from admin.php route. All the authenticated users are passing there, and all those directories and permalinks that you put in that route are protected by the auth middleware or the admin middleware if it's something new that you can create. So there are like interconnected routes and middleware.
Yeah, middleware is kind of a weird concept, and I kind of think of it as when you send a request from the client to the server, it's kind of intercepting that request, and it can, you can write your own middleware and you can do whatever you want. It can modify the request, it can reroute it to another place. So it's kind of a weird thing where this thing is kind of sitting in between, what's coming in on the actual request and what PHP it's actually hitting. I don't know, it's kind of a strange concept to me.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of weird. Like, I don't know if any other application used middleware, and the fact that it was kind of confusing for me at the beginning, that you can, even if you don't strictly connect a middleware to a specific route, you can use all the middlewares in all the routes. So you have a route file, you can wrap or use a middleware only with a specific resource inside the web.php routes. It's not that you're forced to use the middlewares just with a specific route PHP file. You can use, you can wrap the auth middleware around the web / admin, and then in the same web.php file, you can use the auth API middleware all together in the same file. It's not that you're strict in using one file per middleware. So and it's kind of like always related to the fact that Laravel is pretty modular and it's flexible. It can accept your own structure. So you can definitely not define any new type of routes or any separated file. You can manage everything with the default files that Laravel offers you on the first installation, but you also have the option to specify a specific middleware and reroute it to just one unique routes file, which is, it's pretty good. It's pretty flexible, I guess. I guess that's it. We tackle like the majority of this pretty like complicated folder structure, but the more you use it, the less complicated it gets. And as you said at the beginning, probably 90% of your time as a developer you will spend inside the app folder, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because once you set up your route, you set up your database, the rest is actually building the application. So all that logic, all the models, the controllers, all that stuff's going to be happening in the app.
Yes, and it's great. Like probably, I don't know if we're going to take a break from Laravel, but we're going to do one last episode about Laravel by talking about all the other folders that we didn't touch, and talking about why you should set TDD and why it's important having like tests that they cover the majority of your application and not basically write tests for every single thing. And it's kind of like kind of absurd. And how to deal with a more front-endy kind of part of Laravel. So how to deal with the webpack.mix.js, which a lot of users, they kind of get confused because it's not like a regular Webpack file. You can use Laravel Mix that it's way easier than regular Webpack. And yeah, as on all these other files that are out there, like the .env file, why you should use it, why you should have many .env files and not just one, and how you can create your custom terminal commands or custom like kind of like artisan commands, extend artisan to do the things that you want to do. So
super useful.
yeah, that's going to be like a super cool episode. But before concluding, we have one question from a user that I cannot find anymore because I remember I found this question last week from my YouTube channel, and I thought, oh, this is a really interesting question. But then now I was trying to find a user back. So I'm sorry if you asked this question and I'm talking about it. I'm not giving you a shout out, but thank you for the question. And the question is, how difficult would it be to use WordPress only as a backend wired to a Vue.js or React frontend just with the REST API or GraphQL?
Yeah, I think this is an awesome question. WordPress does have its own API built in, and I've looked at it a little bit, and I've been trying to redesign my website for forever and haven't made hardly any progress. And I'm wanting the blog portion of it to be kind of a single page application where it loads up the actual blog content asynchronously. And yeah, you can hit the WordPress API endpoints and actually pull back all the content for posts or get a list of posts and everything. And then you can handle it however you want with the front end. If you want to do Vue, React, Angular, Vanilla.js, whatever you want there. As for GraphQL, I've actually not worked with GraphQL, so I can't really speak on that at all. But you're kind of our WordPress expert. Have you done a lot with the WordPress API?
Yes. I started like the first experience with a fully JavaScript frontend was with when I tried to create a WordPress theme based on Backbone.js, like the good old age of Backbone.js. Yeah. The problem at that point was like Backbone.js didn't have all these fancy things like the routers and the HTTP requests. Was like you can only use Ajax, and sometimes we also recommended to use the jQuery post request because it was the most solid that you could use. Even like the regular, like we didn't have fetch and async and all this kind of like fancy things, Axios, that it's so useful. So it was really complicated. Building a front end, yeah, the promises, like all those things didn't exist, not even like a couple of years ago. Building the front end with Vue.js, I did it as an experiment. It's really, really easy. The complicated part is properly wiring the Vue router with the permalink structure of WordPress. The permalink structure of WordPress is really good because every time you create a new blog post or page or new section, automatically generates that permalink dynamically based on what's the title of the content that you're creating. And if you change that permalink structure, it just like adapts by itself. It's great. The permalink structure of WordPress is great. With Vue.js, basically what you have to do is like, it's a catch-all. Basically with the Vue router, catch all and fetch the result based on the permalink slug in the database. So something that WordPress does by default, you have to recreate it and you have to constantly check the database if that slug exists in whatever section and return the proper one. So that's kind of like an extra step. There are a bunch of GitHub packages of people that they released a pre-built WordPress Vue, like they call it Vue WordPress or something. I don't know. I don't remember a package, but there are a bunch of things on GitHub which are pre-made. But yeah, that was my hardest thing. And there's something about the REST API which is really weird. The REST API of WordPress have been around for probably 5 to 6 years, and they're not part of the core of WordPress. If you want to use the REST API, you have to install a plugin. And the REST API, they haven't been used extensively ever. Like they've been around forever, but it doesn't exist a website that just uses the REST API. They've been used to handle small things. Now with the developers of WordPress doing Gutenberg is the basically page visual editor, page builder of built-in WordPress. It's only just based on REST API. Everything is asynchronous. And since they started using Gutenberg, they discovered more and more issues with the REST API that they weren't.
Now I start using it.
Yeah, they weren't aware before because no one used the REST API extensively in order to find out those bottlenecks or various issues. So REST APIs, they have limitation. That's why we were expecting WordPress 5.0, I don't know, probably like almost at the beginning of the year with Gutenberg, and it's been delayed and keeps getting delayed because there's so much thing to be done in order to make it work properly. And GraphQL, I didn't use it with WordPress, but there are a lot of amazing resources to test GraphQL, and there's also the Apollo that is like the interface to deal with GraphQL, which helps a lot. So yeah, it's I'd say it's doable. It's really doable, and yeah, WordPress has a pretty like easy to use backend, so it's not a bad choice using WordPress as a backend. But yeah, the hardest part for me was the permalink structure. That was a nightmare, and I didn't even deal with everything.
I never even thought about it because I mean, you can change it easily in the admin panel. So you build a nice theme for somebody, and then they switch the permalinks and everything breaks.
Yeah, it's terrible. Like, oh, now I want all my permalinks to have the / my name / prefix to everything, and it just crumbles apart. In WordPress you can do it, and it does that and it deals with that. But yeah, no, that's kind of hard. In Laravel it's way easier because you have to build your router, so you can deal with those things, and they cannot change the permalink structures by themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we'll see. I feel like Gutenberg is one of the first step towards a more asynchronous front end, asynchronous JavaScript heavy type of interface. We'll see what the core team of WordPress does. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I hope it's good. I hope they get it working well, and it's performance based, and I just hope they do a really good job with it.
Yes, exactly. I built a couple of small blocks for Gutenberg. I don't really like TypeScript. I don't really like React, like the structure. Yeah, it's so confusing. I don't understand it. It's like, why? It's just like, why cannot be done in Vue or even like regular vanilla JavaScript? Why?
Yeah. And for TypeScript, I feel like ES6 is already kind of, taken JavaScript and plain JavaScript a whole leap forward that kind of negates the whole reason to use TypeScript, like the classes and everything.
Exactly.
I mean, other than just the type safety, I feel like ES6 has everything that you need.
Yeah, it does. I feel the same. Yeah. Well, we'll see. Like JavaScript now, it's going strong. In like every week there's something new. I don't know. Like I'm pretty good at keeping my system updated, and I remember up until a year ago, it was like a new version of Node.js was released once every 6 months. NPM have been stuck on the same version for a year. And now it's been like 3 weeks that Node.js passed from version 8 to version 10 in 3 weeks. So it was like every day a new version of Node.js, a new update of the Vue CLI, a new update of React, a new update of Apollo. Like all these things are like easier and easier to make and update and maintain, which like pushes the boundary of JavaScript frameworks, which is really good. We'll see.
Yeah,
that's pretty much it for the episode, I guess. Do you have anything to plug, anything to add? You can also just plug your things and say whatever you want.
No, I guess check out my channel. I'm planning on doing a live Fitbit development later this week. Probably going to do a podcast next week when I'm in San Diego for an Esri conference. So follow me on my channel. Follow me on Twitter. I post random things like breaking databases and yeah.
Awesome. And you can find this episode, of course, everywhere. If you're already listening, you don't need to find it in any other location, but you can follow the podcast on the @nerdcontinuity Twitter account, which was reactivated finally after the stupid mistake of setting the birthday to this year, which is like super silly stuff, but whatever. And I'm planning to do a live streaming, like 8 hours live streaming, where I will try to build a PWA or like I would say like more of a SPA, a single page application of the Nerd Continuity website, all in Vue.js with no backend. So everything is going to be based on Vue components. It's going to be really, really simple. I'm going to try to build everything in 8 hours and try to live stream the entire experience in 8 hours. I don't
That's
know.
really awesome.
I have to find a way to deal with bathroom breaks because I'm really scared.
Just put your dog in front of the computer, let him code for a while.
Yes, he's got to build a website by himself. It's like, oh, I've done. Okay. Oh, thank you. This is great. While I was in the bathroom. Yeah, no, but yeah, that's an experiment. I want to build the Near Continuity website. It's gonna be super cool. I was experimenting with the Vue CLI, which has all these built-in things inside. It's awesome. It's just magic. It's fantastic. That's pretty much it for these episodes. Thank you guys for watching, and as usual, until the next one, happy coding.
Thank you.
Did you find your catchphrase?
No, I haven't.
Thank you. That's the best.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching. Okay, bye.